Hi and welcome to Whisky Shared. You're watching my review of Starward Two-Fold. I'm Toby and you're watching Whisky Shared. Welcome to my review of Starward Two-Fold. If you're not familiar with Starward, it's an Australian whisky brand and it comes from Melbourne. Being in Australia, they have the same problem that the Americans have with bourbon and other American whiskies, that the climate isn't too kind to the whisky aging process. What happens is they lose quite a lot in evaporation, so a lot of their whiskies at the moment coming out of Australia are quite young. This particular one I believe is around the 3-year mark, but what's interesting about Starward Two-Fold is it's 2 different grains. So this is a blend of malted barley and wheat. I don't know the proportions, but it's then aged in Australian red wine barrels. So obviously it does give it a nice colour. You can probably see that in the bottle, but I don't know if they've added any colouring to it. This particular one is bottled at 40%. As far as I'm aware, most Starward are fairly low. If all their mainstream bottles are under 46%, but I would say Starward is probably the biggest Australian whisky brand being sold in the UK at the moment. It's definitely the most well known. I've only tried one other, that was the Starward Solera, and I tried that at the Whisky Lounge last year. So I've no idea what this tastes like. I didn't even check the reviews. I just saw it and thought it was interesting. It's at a good price point. It was on offer under £40, and the fact that this has come halfway around the world, I think that's fairly good value. So should we find out what it tastes like? Because I've no idea. It's not even open yet. So this will be my first impression. Onto the whiskey. Nice pop. So as I said before, it's quite dark. Obviously it's been in red wine barrels, so I assume that's where it's got most of its colour from, but it may well have some added colour. I'm not sure. Let's find out what it's like on the nose. Right, you can definitely pick up the red wine. It's not too strong. It's lovely and sweet. Definitely pick up malted barley on the nose. Getting a bit of red apples, a little bit of raisins. Yeah, there's almost like a sort of tannic note to it. Yeah, I'm not getting much more though on the nose. Maybe it's a whiskey that needs time in the glass. But it is quite sweet on the nose, I like that. So let's try it on the palate. It's a little bit tannic. That's the thing you notice as soon as it starts to evaporate. A little bit prickly on the tongue. I wouldn't say it's overly dry. The red wine influence, even though there's a sort of tannic note to it, it's still quite sweet, and the dryness is quite low. The sweetness is really nice. It definitely tastes like apples. But I'm getting that malted barley character. It really reminds me of a lighter version of my red wine matured Tipperary Irish whiskey I've got. That's a single malt. But yeah, it's interesting. I'm going to have another sip to see what else I can pick up on. Yeah, so it doesn't have an amazing amount going on, but the flavours really mesh well together. That barley character with the sort of sweet red apples, that slightly drying tannic note, and there's a little bit of prickle, a little bit of pepper. At 40%, I was worried that it might be a bit too light, and for some palates maybe it is, but I think it just about works. I think it's not too light that you'd be dismissive, but what I'd probably suggest is you need to hold it in the mouth a little bit longer for it to sort of interact with your taste buds. But it really does bring out a lot of good flavours, and yeah, I think people would struggle to say this wasn't a single malt. It really does have such a noticeable malted barley character in both the nose and the palate that I think they'd be hard pressed to tell there's something else in there, because I think obviously that red wine maturation disguises that well. Finish wise, it's sort of short to medium. Interestingly, it's not very dry on the finish. Really not getting much in terms of woodiness. The tannins from the wine aren't too dry on the finish either. Yeah, it's really quite pleasant. It's one that on paper you'd probably dismiss as being a bit too cheap whiskey. The fact that they've blended it with wheat and that they've matured it in a red wine barrel, maybe to disguise something, and maybe that it's 40% would put people off. But I really think that's a good whiskey indeed. I'd say it really does sort of deserve the sort of price point it's sitting at. £40-ish, I think is good value. Any more than that, I think I'd be hard pressed to recommend it. But I really like that, and especially if you like a red wine finished whiskey, I think you'll enjoy this as well. So see you again next time. Songcha.
I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, why not give it a like or a comment, and please consider subscribing for more videos like this.